Thank you. Happy New Year again to everybody. Welcome and congratulations to Ms. Santangelo and Ms. Gong right next to you there. Just so you all know, and I've been in touch a little, and I know Mrs. Spitzer's office has been in touch with our two new members to get them ramped up on all the requirements now. The next step for them will be a marathon half day with our administrators where you'll receive a lot of different information about different projects and topics, and some of that information is privileged, so it has to wait until you were sworn in. But we'll try to schedule that before the end of January with you. And if we can get you both on the same day, that's best for our operations, so we'll try to arrange that. So Mrs. Graham and my office will be in touch to start trying to arrange that both with you and all of our administrators. I'll be involved in that as well. And the promise will always be to continue with all of you, of course. The promise is always to continue to interact or meet or discuss any questions that you have on anything. And as you move forward, our new members certainly lots of experience at this table as you move into your committees who can mentor you as well. But the first year does take a little while to get the swing of things. So don't feel self-conscious about it if you're still getting your feet under you next month. I have to unfortunately follow those sentiments with just a notification that we have today been tracking news out of Perry, Iowa of a school shooting in a high school. And I mention that only because that does have impacts at our school, especially when that happens in a high school. And so teachers, students, folks are tracking that news throughout the day, so we try to keep an extra close eye on everybody. It also affects the way that we take care of one another as adults and look out for one another as adults. So I've asked everybody at school today to offer some thoughts and prayers for our students, their families, our colleagues at that high school in Iowa, and just ask for you all to spare the same when you have a moment as that situation develops. In those kinds of situations, we're always extremely grateful for law enforcement, and here's another situation which law enforcement played a decisive role in saving lives from what we're seeing in the news reports. And it always leads me to want to express admiration and gratitude for our partners with the Raritan Township Police Department who have on any given day up to 4 officers posted throughout our campus between our 3 Class 3s and our full-time SRO. So we are very fortunate in the partnership that we have with those experts and their loyalty to and just expertise, their loyalty to the school and the expertise that they offer us. Now, there have been, I have a few items to discuss because we have a few action items on the agenda, and we're always very self-conscious about that when we have action items on the reorg agenda, because it's an agenda we try to avoid those sorts of things as much as possible. The calendar adjustment is an easy thing to talk about. We need to change the calendar because we need to publicize that to the community. It affects the scheduling of an early dismissal, so we need ample time to communicate that. So we put that on the agenda. There are 2 other items, though, in addition to the board's acceptance of my retirement, which is there tonight to give you the most flexibility that you can have in accepting that and moving forward on any next steps that you need to take. But there are 2 other items. There's a personnel appointment there, which is the appointment of a substitute administrator. That is Mrs. Barbara Manfredi. Barbara Manfredi is a retired administrator. She spent many years here at Central. And we have a building administrator now who's going to be out on some potentially extended sick leave. And so we're asking you to approve Mrs. Manfredi to pitch in, come out of retirement for a couple of days each week maybe, and help move all of those duties forward. Now, the board did the exact same thing in October of 22 under a very similar situation, and Ms. Manfredi came back into the building then as well and was able to have a decisive impact. I know Mr. Grant will test a decisive impact on making sure everything moved forward. So it's on the agenda tonight, not just because I'm excited to see Mrs. Manfredi again, but also because we need her immediately. And to wait until the 22nd will create a backlog of concerns and situations for our students and our staff that I couldn't bear, so I needed to bring that to you tonight. The other item on there is through an addendum to our Operations and Transportation Committee. And we had a lot of conversation about this through email, and I have to apologize for the volume of emails that went out about various things as we came into this week. That's not uncommon for the reorg agenda as we answer different questions, especially with new members, but this is not a common motion in our agenda. Ms. Alicia Dinella serves as board counsel through the Parker McKay Law Firm. Ms. Dinella is leaving that firm to become a founding partner with a new firm. And we have the opportunity to appoint her for, on a stretch into June here that will allow us to maintain continuity in all of the issues in which she represents the board. And just so you're aware, my staff, myself, Ms. Spitzer, we're in touch with board counsel on a regular basis, and if you put us all together, it's probably close to daily, if not sometimes more, depending on what's going on. And board counsel is involved in many things that you don't see as a board when we need things redacted for hearings, for example, or Oprah requests, we need assistance. So to lose board counsel and have to ramp up new counsel is not only a larger investment in time and potentially money in terms of hourly fees, but it also, quite frankly, puts the board at risk. You don't take a key chess piece off the board and replace it with a lesser one and say, well, that'll be okay for a few moves. You want that piece there the whole game. And so that's sort of how we think about this. If we lose access to board counsel, even for a few weeks, then the board is potentially at risk and compromised in situations in which it requires that representation. The other piece of this that I'm actually pleased to share with you, which I shared an email with you all, is our current hourly rate for Parker McKay is $250 an hour. Ms. Dinella will charge us $175 an hour, so it's a savings of money as well. So it's risk avoidance, it is savings in time that would be spent otherwise on ramping up unfamiliar counsel, and it is just a flat-out cost savings as well. Now, I would encourage the boards to, at some point in the spring, consider a request for proposals process to secure counsel on a more permanent basis. You would be approving Ms. Dinella's firm here tonight through June 30th. And I would recommend you to go through the process, the more comprehensive process of finding more permanent counsel now that she's left that firm of Parker McKay. Lastly, I do also want to share just another conversation that went on, and it's a bit technical, but I want to make sure everybody hears it. Again, the volume of email over the past couple of days was a little daunting, so I just want to make sure everybody gets all of the bullet points on everything. Your policies your bylaws rather talk about an organization meeting. They also talk about an organizational meeting, depending on which bylaw you're looking at. Colloquially out there, it's known as the reorg meeting, or the reorganization meeting, or the reorganizational meeting. This all made sense back when elections were in April for school boards. So budget elections, school board elections occurred in April. New board members would sign on at a subsequent later meeting, and the board would reorganize in May, and then would also reorganize the district to implement the budget that had just been approved. So it all happened in May, and it all made sense. So there's a list of dozens of things. We've only done a very small handful of them. There's a list of dozens of things that need to be approved on an annual basis, and those used to be done all at once after the election with an approved budget. When the board elections moved to November 2012-ish, none of those other processes like budgeting or anything went with them. So budgeting still occurs out in the spring. Lots of other things in terms of preparing for the next school year occur out in the spring, but we seek you now as a new board in January. It would be presumptuous of me to put some of those items in front of you tonight before you have an approved budget. Curriculum's a good example. If I put curriculum before you tonight, I would be feeling like I have to put it before you again in May after you approve the budget. And on top of that, it's unnecessary because last year when all those items were approved, they were approved through June 30 of this year. So we have, we have the cycle going. Districts do it both ways. Some districts will do it all in January. Other districts will do it in 2 meetings or even staggered over a longer period of time. I believe that's more proper. And so, moving forward, however you all want to do it, certainly is fine. But I was very pleased when I arrived here in 2017 and saw that the district was doing it that way, because it meant that we weren't asking you to approve and reauthorize things that were budget dependent before you even had a budget approved. So if you go into code, if you go into, not sure about where statute is on this, but if you go into our policies, you'll find there's still a bit of a mess there. But we've never been cited in any audit finding. We've never had a QSAC deduction. We've never had any issues doing it the way we do it. And if we ever were to, and I can't imagine we would, but if we ever were to have some sort of accountability issue, I think you have a pretty good argument to make that, well, I don't want to approve curriculum yet because we don't have a budget yet. And that would be unwise to approve curriculum before we have our budget. So I just wanted to fill in a little bit of information about that, just so that you all had a sense of all the highlights of the correspondence that's been going on over the past couple of days as we ramped up for this meeting. And with that, Mr. Fallon, I'm all done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
We've had some conversation about this in committees here at this table, and I for one am just quite frankly very frustrated with the whole situation. And I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the one who deals with the implications of it all day, every day, in the way that our transportation folks do, in the way that our drivers do, in the way that Mrs. Spitzer does. It's an incredibly frustrating situation. And it's not about, there's a dispute over transportation for the universal pre-K expansion, preschool expansion students at Flemington Raritan. And this by no means is a complaint about universal pre-K. We benefit from that as a high school. I'm very grateful for the support that the state is giving to that program throughout our region, throughout our county, among my colleagues, both in our sending regions and across the whole county, and across the state. Universal pre-K helps us in the high school, to be sure. So I am very grateful for that. What I'm concerned about is the impact on this board as a co-owner of the joint transportation operation with Flemington Raritan. Concerned about the impact of this board and on the drivers and the staff who do this expert work every day, of compromising long-standing, well-understood, and frequently validated safety protocols. And in particular, I'm talking about a long-standing rule that the JTC, which is the Joint Transportation Commission with the Flemington Raritan School District, the JTC has always limited the number of children in car seats on buses to 5, with an aid. Now, I understand all of the financial implications of expanding preschool to include more children. I understand all the political implications of that as well, that the governor has put a lot of support behind this expansion, and the citizens of our community want this expansion for their children. However, we've taken issue with the planning and communication around this project. We have not been, our transportation department has not been in a position with the information that it's needed to effectively assist Flemington Raritan in the expansion of its preschool in the way that they've asked for it to be expanded. They insist that we put 10 students in car seats on each bus. 5 versus 10, it doesn't sound like it means a lot, but we're talking about these 29 passenger vans. And I want you to think about a 29 passenger van taking a 30-minute route with 5, 3, and 4-year-olds in car seats, plus some additional elementary school students. 30 minutes to to, say, Copper Hill Elementary School with one aide. On most days, on hopefully every day, that's absolutely fine. Now add 5 more students in car seats, no additional aides. Now we have 10 students in car seats, additional elementary school students, 1 aide, 1 driver. Again, knock on wood, that goes fine every day, hopefully. But the day that it doesn't is catastrophic. It takes a bus, and I'm talking about a big 54-passenger bus, not a 29-passenger van. A big 54-passenger bus fills with smoke to the degree that it impedes evacuation in 30 seconds. In 3 minutes, it reaches, it's engulfed. And the interior of that bus is reaching 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Even fire retardant materials are beginning to burn. And at that point too, what you have to recognize is that fire retardant materials are not even rated for collision, so they're not even used in the construction of buses all that often. So you have now a van, 29 seats, 10 students in car seats, 1 aide, 1 driver who's paying attention to the road on a route that may be 50 minutes long between its start to its delivery at a place like Copper Hill. We have, over the past several months, and I would even say over the past several years, resisted requests to increase from 5 to 10 students because we're concerned about that scenario. We're concerned about 10 students in car seats who have to be assisted on and off in the event of an emergency in which 30 seconds means life or death for the people on the bus. So we have resisted that. We have at every turn offered alternative solutions, contracting with other vendors. We have spent an inordinate amount of time running routes to see what we could accommodate. We delivered routes to Flemington Raritan a few weeks ago, key to 5 per bus. And we have bent over backwards on more occasions than I can even count at this point to try and make this work. Throughout the whole thing, we have pleaded with our colleagues over there to look for other options, look for alternatives, think about, plan for different contingencies here. They told us they were, but I'm not sure that that's happened. Now, again, I understand the financial implications of not wanting to spend money on more routes, despite the award of $1.2 million in grant money, wanting to keep the transportation cost neutral. I understand the pressures of that. I understand the political pressures again, but I don't understand why we would cut safety corners to achieve either of those priorities. Proper planning, I would think, allows you to achieve priorities while still keeping your eye on what is the most important priority in a situation like this, which is student safety. Now, Flemington Raritan, after lots of conversation over the past several months about this, sought a directive from the executive county superintendent to overturn our safety protocols. And the executive county superintendent has delivered a letter to this board, to the JTC really, ordering that we place 10 students with 1 aide on each bus.